Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of DOD45, Drawing Over Discussions, 45 minutes with a special guest. I am your host, Tai of ArtByTai, and as you can see, I got my new drawing jacket on and my new seeing eyeglasses. And it looks like this will probably be my DOD45 garb from here on out. The doctor had said that my eyes were no longer going to be 20/20, and with the passing of 2020 into 2021, so goes my 2020 vision. And as far as the jacket goes, I've always thought it would be funny to have a drawing jacket. And so in the spirit of Mr. Rogers and his cardigan, the jacket is going to stay. Today, my guest in discussion is out of New Haven, Connecticut, with some roots in the Bay Area. He's an award-winning recording artist, often referred to as a hip-hop musician, lyricist, poet, and co-founder of Fake Four, and someone who I've been a big fan of since I first discovered his music back in 2010 with his album, The One Man Band Broke Up.
The One Man Band Broke Up. The One Man Band Broke Up.
It was not his first album, and certainly was not his last album, but the entire thing is magnificent. And I first became enamored with the tracks on it called No New York,
Cliches are changing. Now there's nothing kitsch about you.
Bad Jokes,
Bad jokes about bad people and bad bars make the bad worse and make the good crash cars.
and Long Live. I was mesmerized by his voice, his cadence, the melodies, and his lyrics, particularly the opening lyrics from Long Live, which were both brilliant and devastating.
Nobody quite understood Andy Kaufman's finest jokes, even years after all the cancer chewed away. Carmen Miranda's heart attack on the Durante show wasn't noticed until she faded the next day.
I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? How could you not immediately be bulldozed with intrigue after hearing that? Of course, if you don't realize by now who I'm talking about, it is Ceschi Ramos, or simply known as Ceschi. In the winter of 2010, Ceschi was arrested on a pretty significant amount of marijuana charge, and after a few years of court battles, etc., he took a plea bargain. But that's a story that you can learn about all over the internet and in pretty much every interview with Ceschi predating 2015. So we'll not be discussing much of that on DOD45, but I only bring it up because I vividly remember the situation. In fact, in 2013, the Fake Four label started an Indiegogo campaign to raise money to help keep the record label operational while Ceschi served his, I think it was an 18-month sentence. I heard about that through the campaign, and I didn't know very much about Ceschi at that time. But after hearing this story, I was very moved by it, and I started to do a drawing with the intentions of bringing awareness to the Free Ceschi campaign. I was planning on selling prints and giving all the proceeds to Ceschi's Indiegogo campaign. Unfortunately, I never finished the drawing. I did track down my old post that I made on Facebook at that time, and it was just interesting for me to see that. I wish I would have finished that drawing, I really do, and I wish I could find it to try to finish it now. But anyway, I remember the theme of the drawing was going to be this eyeball behind bars, kind of representing Ceschi as a visionary being locked behind bars. The intriguing part of this is that the eye that I drew is pretty reminiscent to the eyeball on Ceschi's first album, Fake Flowers. I had never seen that album before, and I thought this was kind of interesting that the similarities between my eye and the eye that were on that album. The illustrator of that Fake Flowers album is a close friend of Ceschi's who passed away, unfortunately, in 2019, and we'll be tributing him in the drawing that I do today for Ceschi's episode. One final thing. Before we introduce Ceschi onto the show, I wanted to point out another song of his that is right up there as probably one of my favorite songs of all time, and it's a track called Black and White and Red All Over.
I am a product of Catholic school rule of beating, suspensions and foolish cheating. If I mention the ascension of Christ in a sentence, I'm probably kidding.
It's a sobering account of him confronting his Catholic upbringing, and I really urge you to listen to it with heavily focusing on his lyrics. Ceschi is an amazing writer, and I am truly honored to have him joining me today. And look, I could go on and on and on, and I already have probably like for 5 minutes or so. I'm done boring you with my ugly mug. Let's get to the drawing and the discussion with Ceschi Ramos. One last thing. I want to point out that prior to this discussion, we had just traveled from my studio in Salt Lake City, Utah, to my gallery in Hannibal, Missouri, and I forgot to bring my microphone, so I sincerely apologize for the microphone quality on my audio throughout this entire episode. I have since got a new microphone, but my audio in this discussion is not desirable. But I tried to do some EQ mixing to make it better. It's just something you're going to have to deal with. In fact, I probably shouldn't even have brought it up. So, but I did, and I can't go back. Okay, that's legitimately all of the introduction. Let's move on with this. Ceschi, it is truly an honor to have you. Welcome to DOD45.
Thank you for having me, Tai.
Before I start the timer, I'm interested to know how you are doing.
For the most part, I'm all right. Figuring a lot of things out still, and actually just starting to book shows for this year, which I wasn't sure was going to happen. So I'm still a bit, there's still a bit of trepidation there, but it looks like it's going to start happening in June. So
that's good. You have a little bit of anxiety about going back to. When was the last time you were on tour?
right before right before pandemic. So I think our last show was maybe the 1st of March. 2020, and then it was like I remember listening to Democracy Now with Gregory Pepper in the car, and we were both like, this shit is getting serious, right? And then like 2 weeks later, like the whole world was shut down. So.
Are you good with isolation? Were you mostly by yourself during the time, or?
Nah, I'm almost never by myself. I have very much like a non-American style family where we all live together, and I have an apartment in New Haven, but I'm honestly not there very much. My mother wanted me to be around, and so I'm around my mother, my brother, his kids, his wife.
Well, yeah, it was nice to at least be around somebody, I guess.
Yeah, it was actually a really there were a lot of years where I did not get to spend enough time with them. So having a whole year in a row to spend time with them was pretty cool.
What hustle did you come up with to survive the no more touring? Did you come up with anything?
I literally cannot tell you every aspect of that. But I will say that I did apply to like a dozen plus grants. I did receive some grants from the government and some loans to keep the record label going, Fake Four, my record label, and Bandcamp days were actually extremely helpful.
Oh, good.
That's something I can speak on, and Bandcamp days where people were really supportive, and so we started having more of a reason to release things regularly. The label did quite well during pandemic. Oh, and Twitch. I should say we started doing Twitch also, which was an idea that came from my friend Nikki Anarchy. She convinced me, and I feel like I was a bit cautious at first. I felt, after being in the punk and hip hop world and being in small clubs and in people's faces screaming and sweating together, it was hard for me to consider the live stream, but we had a really successful Fake Four live stream fest a year ago.
You guys that's the Fake Four Fridays. You are still doing those?
Yeah, so that became Fake Four Fridays. So we've been doing it for an entire year now, every Friday, and we bring all types of acts, all types of genres, all over the world. Like, we've been finding new outlets to share music and keep things alive and feel like our community is still vibrant and thriving.
Do you feel like that's the silver lining of the whole pandemic? Like all of the different hustles that we as artists kind of figured out?
Yeah, I think it was super necessary. I was stuck in this idea that I needed to tour 200 days a year. And now I don't think that anymore. In fact, I will probably make my touring more and more exclusive. Like, as far as, I don't think I'm going to like kill myself in my body. I'm turning 40 this year. So for me, it's like thinking more about the ways I've been like killing myself physically, but because I thought I needed to. So this was the year of rest where I actually realized maybe I don't have to constantly, be on the road to survive.
At 40 is when you start feeling all of the pains that you admitted onto your body.
Yeah, I like fucked up my ankle, my foot on the last tour, and even at the very beginning of the pandemic for months. And it was just one of these things where, I mean, when you have physical pain, you start just realizing the fragility of your body. And we're at that age, so.
I was on Scroobius's podcast or something, maybe when he was interviewing B. Dolan, and he made the good point, like when you're out on the road, maybe even it was Sage that mentioned this, but like when you're out on the road, you have those pains, but you push through them because you're out on the road.
Push right through, yeah. It was seriously like sitting still during pandemic, and I was in LA when it first started, but it was there where I noticed the pain, and I'm pretty sure I've like fractured. I have hairline fractures on my feet and stuff like that from just years of beating myself up,
Yeah.
But you push through on the stage. It's almost like you become like superhuman for that moment of time.
Yeah. I mean, proof of that is Ozzy Osbourne. He can't even walk or do anything. And then when he's on stage, he's like this 20-year-old performer again. All right, man, I'm going to start this timer, 45 minutes. We'll have 45 minutes for our discussion, and I will complete a drawing during that time. I was going to draw a sloth based off of you saying that was one of your favorite animals, and then you realized I had done a Garbage Pail Kid drawing, and you asked if I would do one.
I want to say something really quickly before you start, because the Garbage Pail Kid drawings, first of all, me and Tumex are big fans of Garbage Pail Kids, and we've been collecting the digital trading cards. And we got to give a shout out to my homie Craig Gonzalez, who started Grim Image Records and helped start Fake Four, and he's actually doing a digital trading card collection called the Secret Saviors of Underground Rap, or Secret Saviors of Underground Hip Hop. And then another reason I wanted to shout out Garbage Pail Kids is because one of my best friends who passed away a couple years ago, he used to draw Garbage Pail Kids too. And so it's kind of and he was an incredible illustrator. And
yeah, because I like to, when I'm drawing, because most of the stuff that I'm, it's usually just coming like subconsciously, but sometimes like I like to just add in a little drawing. What was his name?
Some people call him Johnny Boy Nagel.
Okay, yeah, I'll slip that in there on the drawing somewhere.
If you could throw FLP in there as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, here we go. I'm going to start the timer. We have 45 minutes. Once the timer goes off, then we'll end it and we'll summarize the conversation. And there we go, 45 minutes. And I will start with the first question that might make sense or might not. Handy Randy or Atom Bomb?
Ooh. Let's do Atom Bomb. Handy Randy might be good though for this because of my four-fingered hand. I don't know.
What do you think it was about Garbage Pail Kids that made it so interesting to the youth or
as a youth? I just think it's grotesque, and I liked anything that was shocking. It's just the same reason I liked rap. Honestly, I would listen to 2 Live Crew just because they said fucking a bunch of foul words in a row. You know what I mean? That's why I liked rap. That's why I got into it. It was like a secret that our parents didn't understand that well,
Yeah, it was kind of like a sort of like a rebellion. That like that and punk, like we're very similar.
Yeah.
That same kind of attitude.
Yeah, just like art that made us feel something that our parents didn't understand. And did you remember the Garbage Pail Kids movie?
I do. It was awful, but it was great at the time.
Yeah, it didn't matter how awful, because I mean, awful was the idea, everything. It is punk. It was like such an odd thing for such an odd trend to be into, like mocking Cabbage Patch Kids, and with just grotesque.
Meanwhile, who's more popular now?
And like I loved Madballs and stuff like that too, and the band Madball. So like all that stuff was kind of like grotesque art that was sold to children.
Yeah, that's how I felt about skateboard art. Though I think I saw in an interview you weren't a skater, right? Or you didn't do much skate.
No, I didn't. I was I think I tried for a while, and I never got into it like that. All my friends were skaters of some sort.
Yeah, I imagine you still had like an affinity for that culture, that skate culture.
Very much so. I've had a lot of friends who are like semi-pros, pros, you know, who grew up with that. I just was so obsessed with music and graffiti.
Yeah.
and poetry, you know, and things like that.
Do you have any other weird collections other than like Garbage Pail Kids?
Weird collections. I have a lot of. I collect Smith's bootlegs from Europe on vinyl. And in Europe, you know, I'm a vinyl collector, and I'm a fan of the band The Smiths. And in Europe, they would do a bunch of bootlegs where it was just like pristinely recorded live recordings, and then they just make like a fake record label on the back and release that. So I think one of the Smiths bootlegs I have, it came out on a fake record label called like Tough Trade instead of Rough Trade, for instance, and they're all like from Germany and stuff. And I thought that's kind of a bizarre collection I have. I have a bunch of Jose Canseco cards, and part of that was given to me by a homie Carl in Madison, Wisconsin. So shout out Carl.
Are they like good cards? Are they mint condition? Are they cards that are worth anything?
Yeah, I don't know if they're worth anything anymore, but that's not why I care for them.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I just there's a guy that sits in on my drink and draws, and he's gotten way into the card collecting. Right, it's so huge right now.
Yeah, and with NFTs and digital trading cards as well, it's pretty.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but
yeah, if you know anything about wax, there's like a whole. I know a little too much about it now. Yeah, so wax is basically a trading card token for the most part, and it's a whole like Topps is very involved in that, and so there's a lot of you could buy like digital packs of cards and you open them up and there are all these. That's where we buy our Garbage Pail Kid cards, like me and 2Mix. It really gets pretty nerdy, but yeah, thanks to the pandemic I learned all about it. I would have been on the road like grinding it out in clubs every day, but instead I'm like buying digital trading card packs.
No, but at least maybe that'll end up working. Well, and obviously again, it's not why you're doing it, but at least you could say.
I mean, I have some ideas for incorporating that with music as well, so and like putting out like super exclusive songs and stuff like that in that fashion. I think it's kind of cool.
Are you an optimist or a pessimist? Where do you?
I'm definitely an optimist. I think I'm a very cynical optimist.
Yeah, I always tell people I'm a realist optimist.
Yeah, I'm a extreme realist. Like I don't believe things just fall into my like everything I've ever gotten in life has just come from a lot of hard work and then some faith and then friendships I've made along the way. But yeah, I'm an optimist in the end. I do have a lot of faith, even when I believe it's impossible. I want to believe in things that are impossible for the rest of my life.
Is it it's not a religious faith or is I don't imagine you're religious.
I'm not. Are you religious?
No. Oh.
Yeah, I don't have religious faith. I have faith that human beings can do more than what we believe we can do.
Yeah.
I have faith. I want to believe that society, that we can make changes in society to get closer to things like utopian ideas and closer to equality, closer to freedom. These really basic faith. This is the kind of faith I have. And yeah, more and more I'm not religious at all, but I do have respect for some of the religious philosophers, like the basic ideas of like Jesus, for instance. So a lot of people mistake that for being religious. I'm not religious, actually.
I guess you said maybe already, but do you have a favorite childhood toy?
My favorite childhood toy is My Pet Monster.
I don't know what that is. What is it?
Oh, what? Okay, so it was a blue monster, like a stuffed monster with a hard orange nose with warts on it, and it came with orange handcuffs. And I believe I got it when I was five or six, and then they had a whole line of My Pet Monster pets, and they were little mini versions of the My Pet Monsters, and I don't know if they had orange handcuffs or not.
Do you still have them?
I still have My Pet Monster. I could probably find it somewhere. It's very 80s.
That's very 80s look to it.
Yeah, like 86. I probably got that thing, and I hear that they're expensive now on the internet, but I will never touch mine. And I made a tie-dye shirt for mine as well.
You made your own? Did the whole tie-dye setup and everything for it?
It was like, I think I went to like a urban camp or something. I remember it was, I forgot what it was, but I camped somewhere. We did tie-dye, over summer, and like a day camp that I was at, and I made my shirt for my Pet Monster.
Do people still wear tie-dye these days?
Yeah, it's actually really big again.
Is it really?
Yeah, for real. I'm not even joking. Yeah.
No, we do a show in Tucson, Arizona, and we're always right next to these guys that have this huge booth, and the whole booth is tie-dye, and they're always busy in there. And I was like, maybe it's just a Tucson thing.
Oh, tie-dye is back with a vengeance.
Wow.
You'll be out there and you'll see, if you start noticing it, because I was a big Sublime fan in my, early on. I got the 40 ounces to freedom tape and everything, and before Bradley died and everything. And so I've been seeing the Sublime Sun shirt on tie-dye all over the place. I don't know if it's like Urban Outfitters or one of these weird places that has like remanufactured it and bought the rights to it or something, or licensed it, but it's everywhere again, and it's always like a tie-dyed Sublime Sun shirt. It's true.
Do you have a perspective on that? You know how sometimes you see like younger people doing things, and as you get older, you either can go two ways. You could either be like, oh, you don't even know who Sublime is, or you can be like, oh, that's cool. I mean, maybe you don't know who they are, but at least that's happening.
It was tough with Sublime, because after he died, it was a completely new type of fan base that started picking up, getting into their music, and it was like not my kind of fan base. Like, they came from the punk scene, you know what I mean? And a lot of people forget that because it became like this frat boy bro thing. And yeah, they always had that to an extent, but it came from this, like, they were heads, like they were like Minor Threat and Bad Brains fans, and like would cover these songs, and like huge heads, like their knowledge of reggae and all types, like the shout outs they would do within their music taught me so much. Like it showed me so much music, because they would basically be replaying their own samples almost. They almost looked at it, they would do shout outs like KRS-One and shout outs to all types of punk bands and stuff. So yeah, it taught me a lot, just because they would be so clear about their influences, and a lot of people like mock that, but actually it was like this really interesting postmodern experience, in my opinion.
When you hear like a Sublime track come on, does it take you to a different vibe? And if so, are you able to kind of articulate where that feeling that you get, like when you hear?
Yeah, it takes me back to the Bay Area. I remember the first place I heard it was in my friend Carlos's father's garage. He was showing it to me because he thought I'd like it.
His dad showed it to you?
Yeah, but he's like a head. Like, he was like a Deadhead / like Zappa head. And Sublime had covered a Grateful Dead song, and I was not a Grateful Dead fan, but somehow they managed to make it in a way where I actually liked the cover they did. So, because it was kind of like a sort of hip hop interpretation of it. And yeah, I was just sold. I was like, what? This is like, I had just never heard anything like that at the time. And this is at a time when I brought it back to the East Coast where I lived, because my parents were divorced, so I'd go every summer to California, and was going to high school in Connecticut, New Haven, Connecticut. And so nobody knew Sublime actually at the time. And at the time, like right around that same time, the ska scene in New Haven was like blowing up. It was a lot of ska core stuff, like Voodoo Glow Skulls, stuff like that was blowing up. And
So when you got out there, what you took that to your boys out there? Like you were super stoked.
yeah, I showed it to people, and most people were like, "Oh, that's cool." Like they weren't really into it, and then like a year or two later, it just blew up.
Yeah, I've always been a Sublime fan. Is there something you wish that we could bring back from the past, like a Blockbuster or rotary phones or like phone booths or something?
Honestly, I miss the internet of the past. When I was 14 and dabbling in like Unix hacking, and I was like really into the free internet before it was taken over by corporations. It was a really amazing space.
No, it's exciting.
It was really exciting. It was a place I learned about a ton of art and music, and that ended. It was all centralized and put on, taken over by corporations who monetized everything, including our existence.
Yeah. Do you think that there's even any chance of us ever getting back to that?
I'm a bit optimistic about the about certain crypto platforms in that way, because it's about the decentralization. I understand that a lot of it comes from the space of finance, but I think with art and music, there is a lot of potential there.
So you're enjoying the NFT movement with art and everything?
Yeah. I think we haven't seen anything yet. I think it reminds me a lot of the early days of the internet, when I was discovering the internet, and I was an early young programmer, and like a lot of people don't know this about me, but I was poached out of high school to be a web developer in New York City, and offered like $60,000 a year out of high school to just make websites, and I decided to take a scholarship to college instead.
Is there a regret in that, or would you have would you have been as focused on music if you ended up being a web developer?
Honestly, the scholarship was so, like, going to college when I did, and for basically for free, for not free, but very, very low price, and I got a lot out of that. I'm grateful that I did that instead of this short-lived kind of web boom that was happening. Everybody lost their jobs within 2 years, but I'm glad I went to college, because I learned so much about, and in fact, the entire time I was at college, I was paying some of my tuition by writing websites for the college.
Where did you go?
Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. It's like a small liberal arts college.
I went for like a year, but I realized it's a good place to understand how to exist in society.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was for me. It was a good place to kind of refine my worldviews, and like get better at writing, which has been a super helpful thing for me, and honestly just be exposed to a lot of culture. I mean, for me, I feel super privileged to have been able to get a scholarship and go to school, and at some point, my thesis is about hip hop. I actually did a thesis of Mexican descent, just Tumex and Chololancinco, and my college flew me out to LA to hang out with the Project Blood for a month, and I wrote a 90-page thesis about Mexican Americans in underground hip hop.
Oh, that's awesome, though. As
a cultural studies exercise. And I made a documentary as well. And the college provided these things to me. It's just like, it was just a wild privilege, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And you get way more insight out of actually diving into something and writing a thesis about it than you would just kind of being a fan of it.
Oh yeah, I was in the mix, and I was also, an artist, and already kind of had a bit of a name for myself by that point, but I was just like a youngster kind of watching all my heroes up close. You know, I've worked with a majority of my rap heroes. You know what I mean?
That's so great. I was going to ask you, is there a difference or a difficulty difference rapping in English or in Spanish?
Oh, Spanish is a more fluid language, actually. It's just a different way of breaking up syllables. Yeah, and also a lot of Spanish words rhyme naturally. My father was always like, rap in Spanish is lazy because so many of the words naturally rhyme, you know. So it's like it's more about like the patterns you break down syllables with. But yeah, I think rapping fast in Spanish comes really naturally to me.
It seems like a faster spoken language too, kind of.
Yeah, just naturally. It's especially, you know, I'm Puerto Rican, and like the Caribbean version of Spanish is very fast. So I'd be like, you know what I mean? It just like comes like flows off the tongue, you know.
You don't have a preference of which you prefer, either one, or it doesn't really matter? I guess there's a debate based off of what you're actually writing about.
I think I'm stronger in English, to be honest, but I think Spanish is a more poetic language naturally.
I think I read somewhere I was trying to figure out I hate to label anything, but I was trying to figure out like what you call your music, but I saw someone or somewhere it said it was like they called it Latin progressive. What do you have a thought on that? I mean, I thought it was pretty cool.
I think that's interesting. One of the bands I was in was definitely fit. I was in a band called Toca, and that was with Cholo Lancinco and Tommy V and my brother David. My cousin Ernesto was part of it. Our friend Pat Nagel, John's brother, Danny Levin, are still like someone I work with all the time, horn player and producer. We were definitely considered Latin progressive, I think because we came from that perspective, and we did have more Spanish songs, but then we'd have like wild like Zappa freakouts of jazz and indie rock and hip hop, and it was all over the place.
All right, let me throw a couple of Sophie's choices at you.
Okay.
They're not always genius or anything, but I just find that they're kind of fun to do. So the first one is Bjork or Tom York?
Oh, fuck. That's one of the hardest. I really love them both. Oh, God. I just keep thinking of Dancer in the Dark and how Tom York did a song with Bjork for that movie.
Yeah.
You know what? So this is a shout out to both, but I'm going to go with Tom York because Radiohead was a big band to me. The only time I ever saw them was in 97, right before OK Computer came out. And that record was The Bends was actually a huge record to me. It was like my first like quietly cry in my room. It's like when I realized I was really emo.
All right, here's another one. Black Crows or Black Keys?
Oh, fuck. I don't like either, to be honest.
Really?
God. That's such a hard question. I really don't like either of those bands. I'm going to say Black Crows because I saw them at the Horde Fest in 95. They sucked, to be honest. I don't know why I said that.
It's okay. I think it's legit balls that have an opinion on music.
I got a lot of opinions on music. I love all kinds of music, by the way. Like, seriously, you'd be surprised at some of the shit I think is the best. Like, if you ask me what I would say the Gin Blossoms over both of those bands.
I know what I was going to ask. So I was going to ask during your, I think the Fistful of Vinyl performance you did in your interview, you mentioned this artist that you were listening to, and I had never heard of her, and that she sounded very similar to Bjork. I hate to offend her if she doesn't feel that way, but who is that artist that you said?
Joanna Newsom. She's one of my favorite musicians, that period ever, for sure. She is from the Bay Area. A lot of people know her because she's married to Andy Samberg, which is really funny.
Oh.
But she was like an incredible harpist. She was kind of part of this, what they called like the freak folk scene that was sort of like a short-lived, magazines come up with these scenes or whatever. she was kind of thrown in there with like Devendra Banhart and stuff like that, and Dirty Projectors and Animal Collective and stuff like around the time that was all coming out, she was kind of coming up. But me and Factor, we have spent many a tour listening to Joanna in the car. Joanna and Frank Ocean. Lots of both of those.
Is that a justifiable? Because I don't want to be saying that if that's not a good comparison.
To Bjork because of her voice, maybe.
Yeah,
I think there's something to the way they write. Also, it's something dense and like hyper artsy, you know, something about the way that and experimental, and yeah, there's something. I don't think that's the worst comparison. I think that's better than other comparisons I've heard.
I know most people like to discover music on their own, and I'm definitely one of those, but I also really get a charge out of sharing music with people and people sharing their music with me.
Oh, me too. Yeah, that's like half my life.
Let me throw this this Sophie's choice at you. Sid Barrett or Sid Vicious?
Oh, Sid Barrett, 100% Sid Barrett, easy.
I guess Sid Vicious was more of just an attitude than a musician.
Exactly. I'm actually like a fan of Sid Barrett's solo music, like the Madcap laughs and stuff. I love like grimy, sloppy acoustic music. Some of my favorite music in the world.
I saw on your website this spiral fracture of humerus from an arm wrestling thing.
Oh yeah. That was in Hawaii.
Have you spoken on that in interviews? I hate to cover stuff that's already been covered.
Not much. Honestly, you might be one of the only people that ever asked me about that.
Can you explain like that scenario if you wanted to? Or
yeah, sure. This is kind of weird, but on tours, I was always known as a very good arm wrestler. I've literally like arm wrestled semi-pro wrestlers and with huge like steroid guys and have beaten them. And so there was a time we were in Hawaii and my brother, he picked like the biggest guy in the room and he's like, yo, my brother will fucking arm wrestle you, beat you. And and I put money on it. My brother was feel like hella cocky for some reason at that moment. And it was at a party in Hawaii, like in Oahu somewhere. So they put us on this flimsy table, right? It was like shaky, and it really, like looking back, it was so stupid of us. But we started arm wrestling, and I took him down, and he was like, "Fuck that! You lifted your elbow," which everybody does that unless it's like controlled, right? And then he quickly reversed my arm and broke it.
Oh my god!
It cracked like a tree. It sounded like a tree getting chopped.
So you knew immediately?
No, I thought I dislocated my shoulder. So I was like, someone pop it back in. And my brother's like, fuck that, we're going to the hospital. And they were like, this is a spiral fracture of the humerus. And it's one of the most painful arm breaks it might be the most painful arm break you could have. And I didn't really notice.
Were you on tour at the time?
Yeah, we used to play Hawaii a lot because it was one of the first places to discover our music. In the underground, there was a big tape trading scene out there, and they brought us out there early, like before Fake Flowers was out, like earliest days of my music. So we were out there for a one-off show in Hawaii, and that happened. I was in the hospital there. I got a rod and screw.
Which arm was it?
My left arm.
Did it affect your playing at all?
Yeah, I couldn't play properly for about a year. And I bought a tiny guitar because I could move my wrist. And I also bought an auto harp that year. And in fact, I've never mentioned this in an interview, but in the song, there's a song called 1988, and I play auto harp all over it. And the reason I play auto harp is because my arm was broken.
Oh.
And I made that song, and I wrote that song on the auto harp. And originally it was produced by Omid, who did Beneath the Surface, underground LA, legendary underground LA shit.
Do you find that your multicultural existence gives you an advantage perspective, or like how does that play out in your adult life?
Oh, it's incredibly important to me. I've never quite felt like anything. I feel like since I'm I'm Puerto Rican and Italian, and I'm very much both of those things. And I feel like nobody could take my culture away from me. But I never have felt quite enough of either. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, the truth is, like, when you break down even beyond those cultures, it's like, then you have Taino blood, Spanish blood, Arab blood, African blood. I mean, it's like the depth of culture that I was born into. It's all really important to me. Yet I've never quite felt like anything. I feel like everything, and I own everything. And one thing that has always is something I think about a lot is how America tends to erase culture. And, for instance, one of the most obvious ways they've erased culture is by calling people black or white, which is genocidal, in my opinion. It's saying, okay, all the depth of your culture is just erased and thrown into this blanket category, which means fucking nothing. The beauty of blackness in this culture historically is that it actually became something. It became American blackness, which is like culturally profound. So people feel things like white pride, and I'm like, what does that mean? I mean, I have a ton of Puerto Rican and a ton of Italian pride because of the depth of that culture and how it's formed me, and the depth of that history and traditions that have formed me. You know what I'm saying? Even if I don't feel like a pure version of anything, I also don't feel like a pure version of a man. I feel like I'm man, woman, everything, and all of that has formed me, and I'm very grateful for that.
I know I asked, you're not religious, but you are sort of spiritual.
My history with religion is interesting because I grew up very Catholic. I was a Catholic school boy. I was an altar boy. My grandmothers, who I love dearly, they were both quite Catholic and into the saints and all this stuff. And in fact, I have one living grandmother in Puerto Rico, and she is, it reminds me every time we speak, to pray and that to have faith in God. And so this is the kind of culture I grew up in, right? At some point, the more I learned about the history of the church, the less I could actually have trust in the church. Because I started studying history and I started studying religion. I was almost a religion minor at one point in college. And the more I understood about the church and the bullshit and the greed and the birth of capitalism in many ways, and just the arbitrary changing of laws, like, okay, suddenly priests can't marry anymore because one of the main reasons priests stopped being able to marry is because the wives of the priests, and this is around the 14th century, I believe, the wives of the priests used to inherit the wealth that the priests had acquired over the years. And in Italy, for instance, the priest was the rock star of a town. They were like the mayors of the town, basically. So all the gifts, all the gold, everything was given to the priest. So the wives would actually inherit that. Churches didn't like that very much.
Yeah, they don't like that money going someplace else.
Yeah, so that changed. That was actually a big part of the reason, actually the biggest part of the reason why priests could not marry and cannot to this day. All those kind of things, buying your way into heaven, never really made sense to me. When you start looking at the word of Jesus, it makes no sense. This is someone who was egalitarian, he was about equality. He was about the ideas of freedom. He's about mutual respect. He was anti-establishment, anti-state, and yet the state took his word and sold it to us for thousands and thousands of years and continues to do so. So that is my history. As much as I can respect elements of religion, I'm deeply anti-establishment. And so at some point, I considered myself an atheist. After years of being a Catholic schoolboy and just kind of following the rules, I started questioning a lot. By the time I was 17 and a confirmed Catholic, I stopped going to church. And in fact, I was like, there's no God, and I don't even think there was a Jesus at some point, And so I remember having that discussion with my mother. She's like, what? Why would you say that? I was like, I just questioned it, I questioned if there really existed one. And that changed over time. I read the Bible multiple times in academic settings and religious settings. By this point in my life, through seeing the things I've seen that are that can never answer, I can also say that I'm not an atheist because I feel like I can never have those answers. So I'm definitely a spiritual agnostic, meaning that I'm open to the ideas of spirituality. In fact, I believe there's a lot more than it would be presumptuous to assume that, you know, human beings could understand everything in this universe. We never, ever will. And so that's kind of the perspective I come from. And I'm open because I've definitely seen and experienced things in this world and in this realm that I can't, you know, science can't explain. Science is constantly change, you know, it's constantly, you know, evolving as well. And we forget that, you know. So I don't put pure faith in anything, but I am a very open person. That's a long version of my answer.
What genre of music do you find you're listening to the most lately?
Oh man, I've been listening to like what I just listened to, I've been listening to a lot of like MF Doom again, just, you know, out of nostalgia. I've been listening to the Gin Blossoms a lot and shit like that. I was listening to Alice Coltrane. I was listening to a band called Lilies, who made one of my favorite like shoegaze albums called Exame or Exame, the Photon Band. Yeah, I just listen. I don't know. I go home. I go to my apartment sometimes and just throw on a record. And I was listening to Talking Heads recently. I'm all over the place.
I haven't listened to Talking Heads in a while. I definitely want to put that on. Do you have music on a lot?
Yeah. I constantly am like checking something out. I get a lot of stuff sent to me, like demos, or my friends want my opinion on stuff, or mixes from artists that we're releasing on Fake 4.
Do you have a song that like a go-to song for like when you need a mental boost?
Yeah, there's a few, but one of the boost I just put on the Minor Threat discography usually. You know what I'm saying? Like that just boosts me up every time. Like, yeah, like screaming at a wall.
Yeah, I have four or five that no matter what, like when I put it on, it's like it totally works for me. Blood Sandwich by Aesop is one that gets me every time. POS's Sleep Drone for
Oh, that's an incredible song, I think.
That song, dude, fires me up so hard. I love it.
That's a lot of dedication though, like to get fired up. It's kind of like a slower.
I know, you know, it's crazy. It's on all my workout playlists. Like there's a verse in there that I won't waste time trying to remember exactly what it is, but I just get going from it because it feels so passionate about it.
Yeah, that song is a rare one. It's a fucking rare one. Another song for me is there's a Joy Division joint. I've been waiting for a guy to come and take me by the hand. That shit gets me hyped. Or Bad Brains always.
When you were growing up, like, were you always breaking out the guitar and jamming out?
Yeah, if there's a guitar on, I'm gonna play it. I probably won't let it go. I'll play it like, unless somebody else wants to play it, I'll just be playing it all day, and I won't pay attention to anybody else.
When do you do that move? Like, if you're in a conversation or if there's a guitar and you just have it and you're kind of just playing it, do you do that? Do you have that look, that kind of dumb look on your face when someone's trying to talk to you, where you're kind of just like,
yeah, I'm amazed that you're drawing this entire time because it's so, I'm like so ADD, I could hardly focus on anything. So yeah, I'll be like looking at my fingers or like messing with chords, and yeah, it's
my communication skills are not that great. So my drawing has always been my comfort zone. If I'm drawing, I can somewhat slow my brain down, because what happens when I talk, I'll jump right over a sentence because my brain is going way too fast. I can't keep up. But when I'm drawing, a lot of the focus is here, and I'm able to just slow down a bit, pace myself. And I wonder if that's the same thing when you're playing music. Do you find it can slow your mind, or do you have an active mind?
It depends. I don't know. I feel like I'll be on stage sometimes performing, and I'll be thinking about like completely other things than the words. Like in these songs with like 1,000 words.
What's your move when if you forget a lyric? What is your move? Do you just babble, like make a mumble through it, or?
Yeah, I'll keep going. I'll power through.
Let me throw this Sophie's choice at you. Fishbone or Bone Thugs and Harmony?
Fishbone.
Yeah, that one's too easy.
I mean, respect to Bone Thugs and Harmony, though. They were cool, and but they are also known as people who kind of took the Freestyle Fellowship style and like milked it all the way to the bank. You know what I'm saying? So I can't give them the full respect. And Fishbone is just like, how can you not respect Angelo and Fishbone? I mean,
when do you find that you're at your happiest?
Creating. Just anything could be just anything that makes me like black out in the creative process. It could be being on stage, or as long as I'm not thinking too much about the harsh reality of existence, I'm happy. And I feel like for me, like happiness is a fleeting thing, it's like a thing that we barely noticed until later. We're like, oh shit, that was a happy moment. It's not like when you're in the happiness, you usually won't notice it. So
I could sense that's where you're heading, because when you're at your happiest, you probably aren't paying too much attention about what you feel. You just feel good. How about Alice in Chains or Alice Cooper?
Alice in Chains, easy.
Are you a big Alice in Chains fan?
Yep, I am. And when I was in prison, I had this urge to listen to grunge. It was just the thing. I had this like wild nostalgia, and all I wanted to listen to was like anything that was from the time when I was about 11 years old that I loved. And Alice in Chains, I was able to trade some soups for an Alice in Chains CD.
Do you get a CD player in your cell?
Yeah, you can buy a CD. At the time, you could buy. I think now they've actually moved it to MP3 players, but and they have a whole system set up. It's all.
Could you play music whenever you wanted, or was there certain times that you couldn't or couldn't play music?
There are certain times when they do count, and so they'd like they'd make sure you're there, but you could kind of do whatever during that time.
Well, since you brought it up, I don't want to talk too much about it because I know it was such a long time ago. But just so people can get an idea what we are talking about, I think it was in 2010 you had been arrested. Can you just?
I've been arrested. I didn't go into prison until 2013 because court takes that long. People don't realize how long a court case will take. But yeah, hopefully y'all don't actually have to go through that in life.
Oh, fuck me. That was 45 minutes already. I haven't even finished my drawing.
Fuck.
Hey, if you don't mind, Ceschi, I'm just going to turn that to about 8-10 more minutes. Would you mind?
Yeah, no, not at all. And we had some complications with tech stuff.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Yeah, because I'm almost done. I mean, I got to do white highlights on there. And
I love it already.
Oh, by the way, just for anyone that's watching and they're like, Ceschi asked for a character that's lost the finger,
Yeah, right. You're not like offending me.
Yeah, I'm not being insensitive here.
A lot of people like think they will offend me by bringing up the four fingers. Like, nah, it's very hard to offend me. I'm sorry.
Speaking of you were born with just the four, right?
Yeah, I was born like this. It's from not a protein deficiency called the Sonic Hedgehog protein, which is very odd, but my mother figured that out.
That's legitimately what it's called?
That's legitimately what it's called, because I didn't know what it was until that game was already out. So the scientist that named it after the game.
Huh. Well, go scientists.
That's funny, right?
Velvet Underground or Digital Underground?
Oh, fuck. Another tough one. Yeah, I really like both of those. I am gonna I am gonna give it to digital right now, Digital Underground, because they were kind of a big part of my upbringing with hip hop. I grew up. Part of my upbringing was in the Bay Area, where Digital Underground was from. The DJ from Digital Underground lived on my street. You know, it was just a big deal to me being like 8 years old and knowing that, you know, Digital Underground was from my hood. And rest in peace, Shock G.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was actually a funny story. Shock G tried to steal one of the beats I made for Cholo and Cinco. He came over to the crib in LA and he's like, "Hey, who the fuck made this?" He's like, "I'm tracking that." And Cholo was like, "Hell no, you ain't touching that shit." But for me, I was like, you know, I felt pretty good that he liked it like that. And it was like a weird psych, like I'm really into like Latin American psych and stuff, Brazilian, Chilean, Argentine psych and stuff like that. And it was like a weird Los Galos sample. It's like totally not Shock G style, but he was feeling it.
Well, so what do you miss most from road life?
I miss having like immediate goals. Like I think being on the road, it gives me really basic goals to look forward to. Like get to this show, rock a set, and then go to the next one.
Are you a procrastinator at all?
Oh, hey, yeah, absolutely. I'm fucking disaster.
Deadlines are important.
So those things all give me kind of accountability, you know, like they're accountability tests. And I've struggled a lot with that over this past year because it's just too much freedom almost. And freedom is a difficult thing to navigate.
Oh, and what I was going to ask you earlier. Did you find any, like, was it difficult for you to gather any inspiration during the pandemic? Did you find it hard to write and create?
I did. Yeah, I did. I felt very frozen for large periods of time. Stuff came out and like looking back, I'm like, oh shit, I wrote like 10 songs in this period. It just felt like nothing because it was like 10 months, you know?
Yeah, I found myself kind of getting a little jealous from some of my peers and colleagues, like who were creating like crazy, like they were really driven from it. And I really struggled. I could not find myself early on. Now it's gotten better, but I didn't see any light at the end of this tunnel. And I was like, I couldn't find a way to create. It was kind of a bummer.
Yeah. One of the things that I would, speaking of accountability, I started implementing exercises to make myself create. So one of the things I did was join a writing group that my friend Bree started on Zoom, and we would just do 20-minute free writes, and it was mostly poetry and prose. I still do it actually, and it's like a group of friends. I think they're all great writers and people, and that's one of the cool ways that I was able to create and sort of force myself to create during pandemic. Otherwise, I was really stuck. I felt myself procrastinating, like watching too much TV, eating too much, just doing dumb shit. Something clicked in me around February where I needed to get out. I went to Puerto Rico, saw my father and my grandmother, and my uncles. And
that must have been nice, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Like I want to move there half the year, to be honest, because now like so much of my family is there too, and I love it there. I love the island. I mean, I was like kayaking with manatees. Like, I mean, it's just incredible. And you know how it is. You know, I'm sure you go to the islands. And
yeah, it's a different life. It's so free. It's so just away from the hustle and bustle of like living in the States. It's
yeah.
But then it's also, for me, that can be problematic because then you start getting too relaxed and you're almost getting nothing done.
Yeah. I feel you on that too. It's so funny because it was like a reset for me, and I started going super hard after that. I started just like collaborating, recording again. I mean, it kind of like recharged me, and I need that, especially during the winters.
What, for anyone out there, what album would you prefer them to discover you with, or that would kind of lead them into wanting to venture more with your music?
Oof. I probably, you know what? I'd probably say Broken Bone Ballads, and it's just because it has a diversity of styles that kind of showcases a lot. I mean, it's either that or Sad Fat Luck. Sad Fat Luck might be the one to that. It's really hard. They're all quite different.
So yeah, I mean, yes, you're not. I mean, you have a particular style, but you're not necessarily pigeonholed into a rap or a hip hop artist or one kind of particular thing, right? I mean,
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I would probably say Sad Fat Luck because it combines everything I do in a very I feel like a cohesive way where it's easier to swallow than maybe some of the other records where it's like Sans Soleil is like a very probably way more abstract in some ways, and I wouldn't like say like that's the one to check first, you know. I like Sad Fat Luck is the most sonically it's the most like mixed like a pop record on purpose, like we did that on purpose, and yeah, that might be the one to like show people first.
good. Yeah, because usually when I ask that, like a lot of people that follow my work, they have no idea of, a lot of the people that I'll be just in discussions with. And I definitely want, my purpose for this series is to share the people that have inspired my work forever. So I want them to get caught on to the music. And so, yeah, that's usually.
That's really, we appreciate that. I could say that that you're a rare one, using your outlets and your platform to help other artists. Really, it's fucking rare. People are so selfish out there.
I do want to say I have a career as an artist. Like this whole series, none of it is about trying to sell more of my artwork or anything, because it's not at all. It really is. I've been on the grind for so long. I'm not here to like try to. Shit, never mind. That's a waste of time for me to explain that. But
I get it, man. I didn't get that vibe at all from you. You know what I mean? So I understand exactly what you're saying.
I'm on that. You're gonna go off again.
No, it's almost. We're almost there. I'm almost done with this, and then we'll wrap. The whole point of the 45-minute thing was like I don't want to take up anybody's time.
Oh, if that's it, I mean, I'll talk for 2 hours. When I do an oil painting, if that's what I get in the end, if I get an oil painting in the end, take 3 hours. I'll talk to you for 3 hours. Homie.
You don't want one of my oil paintings. I'm shit with oils. I mean, I can do it, but
I know you could do
it. Bad Brains or Bad Religion?
Bad Brains, easy. Actually, way easier. And both are great. Both bands are great. But for me, Bad Brains is one of my favorite bands of all time. They opened my eyes to reggae in a different way. Getting to see them live have been some of the most inspiring moments of my life. So, what
venue do you love seeing live shows in?
Ooh. I've seen so many great shows at a place called Toad's Place in New Haven, and it kind of like locally it gets a bad rap because it was known as like a coke den and like a party place for many years. But damn, I've seen incredible shows there. I've seen Mr. Bungle play the entire California album there. I've seen Bad Brains there when they reunited. I saw HR by himself and his band there play to like 5 people, which was like me and a few other scattered folks. I've seen a ton of great hardcore bands. I saw Earth Crisis there. I saw Madball there. I saw Mars Volta. When I saw the Mars Volta at the peak of their career. I've seen the Wu-Tang, and it's in the entire Wu-Tang there. It just, to me, that venue, it's incredible shows there. So I'm gonna say Toad's Place, and I've been lucky enough to be able to play there a bunch of times too. So
that's great when you like the first time you get to play at a place where you kind of just admired seeing shows. Like that's such a great feeling.
Yeah, I remember. I think I was a Jurassic 5 show I saw there. I made two lifelong friends just by wearing a Shapeshifters shirt. You know what I'm saying? It was like this era. I think it might have been Black Alicious and Jurassic 5. Is that possible? It was yeah, there's just too many dope shows that came through that venue. I got
Well, speaking of that, MC5 or J5?
ooh. You're killing me when it does the genre. I'm gonna say J5, and it's again for personal reasons. Super respect to the MC5, but personal reasons. Okay, when I first heard J5 EP, the Jurassic 5 EP, it really stuck out to me. I loved it. I memorized every word. There was nothing else like it. I liked it way more than any of my friends liked it, which is like very common for me. I loved Outcast Equemini, and none of my friends fucked with it.
Oh, that album's so good.
That's one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time. Like nobody fucked with it in my friends group other than me. I was like, everybody check out Outcast Equemini and Goody Mob, still standing, and nobody gave a fuck. And it's sort of like that with J5 for me. Eventually, I actually was able to open in a tour for a kill of J5 in the UK. And so it was my first time ever in the UK. I played like a 15-minute set opening for a kill and my friend Lewis Logic on tour out in the UK. And I remember I didn't get paid or anything, but I was selling my One Man Band Broke Up. It was in 2010, and One Man Band Broke Up had just come out. I was selling my CDs for £5 because at the time the pound was double the dollar. So I was like, fuck it, I'll take £5 for these motherfuckers, And so killed it. And it was a really fun experience, and I'm really grateful for J5 and respect to anyone connected to the Good Life. Charlie Tuna is a OG Good Lifer. I mean, those are the legends that raised me in hip hop.
Were you're Ozo? I mean, I gather you're probably an Ozo Motley fan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ozo Motley too, and Charlie Tuna being part of Ozo Motley on that first record was a huge deal to me. Having that, I mean, it just blew my brain open because I love J5. I, grew up on Latin American music, and they were like this hodgepodge of all types of Latin American music from all over Latino America, and then they just got one of the dopest voices in hip hop to just rap on some of their joints. I mean, it blew me away. It was a big deal to me, and it was a big influence on some of our band stuff too.
That album was so good. That Ozo Motley album.
That's actually kind of like, I gotta listen back to that.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've listened to that, and so after I started calling up.
And what a band! Like they're such a talented, they're such talented players. Like they were knocking out all these styles that are not easy to play.
What band would you just love to see live?
It's probably a generic answer, but Nirvana. They were so dope live. Like the energy, for like a heroin addict who can barely exist. The energy he put into those sets, Kurt and Dave on stage, like jumping to drum sets. I mean, I feel like I missed out on something just because I was just a little too young,
When you're performing, I haven't seen you live, but when you are performing, I have seen footage and you really get into it, like you really lay it out there. That's not that comes naturally to you? Like you don't have any goal of like, I'm going to go out and do this? Is that just happening?
It came from the hardcore days. I was in a metalcore band called Dead by Wednesday. And that was one of my first major tours. And we learned pretty fast that you can't expect anyone to give a fuck. So you have to give a fuck. And when you get out there, you got to put your heart into it. And so I don't care if there's 2 people in front of me. I will destroy that stage every time, and my body and myself.
Right. Well, you can definitely feel it. I love watching anyone, and particularly when I've been watching you a lot lately. But when you see someone, like the passion that someone has for their craft or something they're doing, like that shit is what turns people on. At least for myself. Like that gets me going, and that just gives me even way more respect for any artist that's really dedicated and you can tell really loves it. And you definitely can. So I don't like to spend a whole lot of time like showering the people that I'm in a discussion with compliments, because sometimes compliments can be uncomfortable. I know they are for me, but that's one I definitely want to share with you.
Yeah, but I'll take it from you, man. I think you're so talented. It's great to hear that. Thank you.
Did you ever, or have you ever reached that point where you now can realize like, oh, you know what? I actually am good. Not in a cocky way, but just to be
it's more about like a confidence in what I can do in my skill sets. And I could say, yes, I can write a song. I could write a song pretty well. I know what good songwriting is. I've studied it for years. And that's like my biggest goal. I know what good rapping is. I've studied it for years. I know what good guitar playing is. You know what I mean? I know I'm not the best at anything. Actually, would never say that I am. But I'm confident in my skill set. That's the answer.
What was your first concert?
The one that stands out. When I was like 12, I went to see Stone Temple Pilots.
Are you a Stone Temple Pilots fan still?
Yeah, I saw it at the Fillmore in San Francisco, and it was a really dope show. And they broke. It was right when their second album had come out, like the week it came out, maybe. And they did like a whole acoustic set in the middle. And you know, at the time, I was like 12 years old. Like it was just the charisma on stage that Scott Weiland had was just. How did you get
to the show?
My friend Carlos, again, his father, Derek, he's like an uncle to me. Him and John Nagel's father, Ralph, gotta give them shouts, escorted us or brought us to the show.
Well, I want to give total shots out to any parents, because I have found in these interviews that when I ask the question, you know, what was your first concert, it's usually someone saying my mom took me, or someone's dad, or a parent took me.
Yeah, respect to all them.
Such a great move for any parent to take their child to a live show, because that's badass, and you'll never forget it.
The funny thing about Derek and Ralph is like Ralph was probably in the back smoking. They were probably both smoking weed in the back. Let us go free. I got pissed on in the audience. My brother stage dove. I mean, he was like 10. Yeah, I mean, it's unforgettable. So I'm grateful that they weren't like too cautious, you know, but
right. Are you a Guar fan at all?
Yeah. Yeah, and I've gotten to meet some of those guys over the years, like on metal tours and stuff. I mean, there's something kind of like funny about you drawing a Garbage Pail Kid and talking about Guar right now. There's something.
Yeah. I love Guar, man.
There's something in that. Something's there. Yeah.
Do you do cover tracks?
Yeah, occasionally. Not too often though. I'm not like great at covers. A lot of times I'll learn cover songs and then forget them like the next day. I just don't have a ton of brain space for it.
I was gonna ask how do you approach it when you're gonna do a cover track?
I like study it like homework for about a week, and then I'll forget it like a week later, unless I play it regularly. Like I do play this Cuban folk song by Silvio Rodriguez called Ojalá. And I play that consistently now in my sets.
Are you able to just relax and chill, or is your mind? Are you?
No.
Yeah. How do you vacate? Do you ever vacation?
Nope. It's funny because during the beginning of pandemic, I bought a vacation package because it was like sold to me like wild cheap, because they were like, we got to get rid of these vacation packages, $100 to go to Mexico. Like, okay, I'll buy it. I don't know what I'll do with that. I can't sit still. I'm constantly like working. When you have no job, I mean, you know this, when you have no real job, everything becomes your job. Like my friend Pat said that once, I believe, in one of his lyrics. Like, you know, there's no days off.
Tell me, not me, everybody, what is going to be, all right, let me preface this question with, so after my interview with Sage Francis, I had realized that I have always been an advocate for music, and I come from the time where I bought every album, and I was all about buying. I mean, it was the only way to get music, and I loved it. I have realized that I have been asleep for the last 15 years. I spent so much time making mixtapes and mix CDs. It was just a thing I did. But obviously, I bought all those CDs, so I got used to that. Like, I'm going to make a CD with all my favorite songs on it and stuff like that. And then when Spotify and streaming music came out, or actually before that, I was doing the same thing on my iPod. I was making playlists, all songs that I bought and purchased, and I transferred my CDs onto my iPod. That was a big thing. And I was able to make playlists and all that. And I loved that because I could have all these playlists easily made. Well, somehow I fell into that rabbit hole. And I realized that I have now, for the last however long Spotify's been out, I have just been, making these playlists with people's music, and I have not been buying people's music. And I
greatest trick the devil ever played.
yeah, it's so, I totally, yeah, it's true. Because I just didn't even realize it. And when Sage was pointing that out, like it was like an epiphany for me. Like I just immediately went to the record store and started buying. And I was trying, I'm always on people's band camps now. Like, still the problem for me, I have nowhere to put those digital out, like this music. You know what I mean? Like I don't really have anywhere to store them. So this is a long form question, but what do you have an answer to that? Because you have a record label and your music's out everywhere and streaming. Like after my daughter released her album, we're realizing, they're in shit as far as streams on.
Your daughter released the album?
Yeah. She
that's so dope.
She wrote an album when she was 13 years old.
What?
She wrote it knowing that she wrote all the lyrics and the music when she was 13. She recorded it when she was 14. And on her 15th birthday, she released the album.
That's amazing. That's great.
And the album's called 13. And really, I'm like a stage dad. Like, you have to go listen to it if you ever get a chance, because it's pretty fantastic. But my point was, like, you get nothing from the streams on Spotify. I mean, you get something, at least something.
They add up, and a lot. Luckily, like, it's weird because a lot of people, that's how they ingest music, just like you said. So yeah, I mean, it's not like it's nothing. It adds up, even those 0.004 cents a stream, whatever it is. It's probably less than that. I don't even know.
So I guess the question again: how do I get people, and how do those of us who want music to keep thriving? What is the best way for us to support Fake Four and your music?
Here's my answer, and I don't want to sound like diminishing of anything, but so basically, I don't care if someone is listening and actually caring about the music, that's what I care about. I don't really care about how much money comes in from it. And the best thing you do is go to the concert when it comes through your town. And if you really love something, buy a physical copy, even if you don't really have a turntable or whatever, like those, or buy a shirt or whatever. Like, listen however you want to listen. Any way of listening and ingesting the art is awesome to me. I'm not like a purist in any way, and we have to be flexible. We have to remain flexible. Times change, and at some point, I think Spotify will be a thing of the past as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I think everything will eventually shift in different ways. I think it's really convenient at the moment. I mean, they're a huge corporation, and they're going to be, but I think even that'll change. I've seen we've seen the industry change time and time again. Someone will come up with something better, more convenient, better quality, more supportive of artists. I mean, things will change.
And it's always good to grow. I've always felt it's good to grow with it, because I saw that happening when Redbox came out. I was like, Blockbuster had a perfect opportunity to jump onto that, and they were so stubborn.
Yeah, they fucked up. And I mean, the whole music industry, when Napster came out, which was a huge thing for us. I mean, the first people that ever really listened to my music was through Napster, you know, to my early band work and stuff like that. And the whole music industry was asleep for like 10 years on that. They just kept trying to sue instead of acquire that idea. Then later Spotify came around and basically built a Napster and monetized it, and now it's wildly successful, right? So it took a long time for the industry to come around. Things will change. I can pretty much assure you.
Well, I have such a guilty feeling about that, because I still use my, I mean,
there's nothing, don't feel guilty. If you're listening to somebody, like, that's what we want. I mean, at least I can't speak for everybody, but what I want is just people to care and listen.
Where do you like people to hear? Obviously, you know, buying the actual physical units, but
or like just give them money. You know what I'm saying? Like, people do that for me sometimes. I'll come to my shows and just throw $100 on the table. I'm like, why? Because I've stolen your music for a decade. You know, that's great. Like, that's more than I was gonna get from the CDs and shit.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I want people to do that. I know it's not all about the money. I've been that way my whole life. I create artwork because it's what I do. It's the only thing I know how to do, and it's the only thing that makes me feel right. However, for me to be able to continue to make my artwork, I mean, as freely as I'm able to, people have to collect it. And I have enough people there, so I never complain when people don't. But yeah. I think there are probably a lot of artists out there, that artists, I'm saying, that probably don't have that luxury. And I don't know. I wonder, I sort of worry, do we lose? Does that affect the music industry? Will we lose? Or I guess.
See, my perspective on it is like, there was always people that didn't have support, you know, like, it was always the case. And it's a very small amount of artists that actually have support networks and fan bases. Honestly, I know a ton of artists that just don't have fans. Maybe they haven't gotten the lucky breaks, or haven't worked hard enough, or put themselves in the right positions, or tried hard enough to just like promote, because most people really dislike promoting themselves. And
that's it's a big part of it definitely is. If you want to be able to get, it's a huge part of it. You just got to figure out a way to let that go. And, you know, that feeling of like, oh, I don't want to do the business part of it, because if you were really DIY,
right. And I think another thing is, like, when you look at like all your Instagram followers, for instance, right? Like, you have a bunch of social media followers. Almost, I would guess 90% of them are passive ingesters of music. I'm sorry, of art. I'm going to say art, including music. And the large majority of people who check our shit out are passively checking it out. They're not like wildly dedicated or whatever. For that 10% who is wildly dedicated, I'm like blessed to have this like cult fan base that rides for me. And, you know, they might spend $1,000 a year on fake Four shit. And that's just 10%, but that keeps things working. And
so we saying thanks to them too.
Big thanks. They keep us going. And I wouldn't make the shit regardless, but thank you for.
All right. Well, I'll wrap us up here. One final thing. Are you approachable at your shows?
Yeah, too much so, probably.
Let everybody know where, I guess now things are starting to open up. There's kind of some light at the end of the tunnel. What do you got happening live wise, or what do you have events coming up that people can?
Well, a really good friend of mine passed away in March, and we're doing a memorial festival in his honor on June 4th and 5th in Greenville, North Carolina. It's open to the public, preferably if you're vaccinated.
What's the venue?
It's called the if they want to Google it or whatever, it's the Richard Benjamin Forever Fest, and it's June 4th and 5th in Greenville, North Carolina. It's a bunch of really talented homies that are going to be on that. I'm playing both nights. That's the first shows.
And then the websites and Bandcamp.
Yeah, it's CESCHI .bandcamp.com. Fake Four is the record label.
Oh yeah, the Fake Four Friday. That's
that's on Twitch. Yeah, that's twitch.tv/Fake4 Inc.
And as far as as far as right now, that's going to be something that's going to continue on for you. You'll keep doing the Twitch streams.
Yeah, I think we're gonna. I noticed that when things are opening up, some of the attendance becomes a little scattered.
Yeah, man.
But every week we have kind of a base of supporters who come through and hang out on there, and it's great community. I'm really grateful for the Fake Four community.
I'm having the same experience with my drinking draws. Like as soon as the weekend started getting sunny outside and people were starting to go out, like the drop off was quite significant. But
right, I noticed it too. But it's like, hey, we gotta expect that. And I mean, I just think it is getting harder to book these things. I feel like doing for a year straight, it's a little tricky, but it's a cool way to showcase. We can't sign everybody. We can't release vinyl by everybody. At least I could give them shout them out and invite them to play a virtual set. You know what I mean? Like, and introduce them to some new ears and eyes. You know.
One final thing, I realized I'm not a great critic of art and music because I know how much work goes into it. I'm almost a fan of everything. Because I'm like, well, the fact that someone worked hard on that's fucking good enough for me.
Yeah, I feel a little bad for dissing the Black Crows and Black Keys.
They're doing, both of them are doing just fine.
They're doing just fine. Actually, in fact, the funny thing is the Black Keys, they took a keyboard player from a band that was signed to our label, and he became their organ player on tour. I forgot about that, and it fucking broke up the band that we had just released.
Yeah, so you have a little bit of resentment there.
Yeah, it's a beef against the Black Keys. I'm glad I picked the Black Crows. Fuck the Black Keys.
Awesome. All right, Ceschi. Well, here's your drawing, man. I hope that you like it. The whole guts thing I did because I feel like when you're performing, you're spilling your guts.
That's so perfect.
So I was able to fit in FLP on there, Johnny Boy Nate. And the name of this character is Francesco Four Fingers.
Oh shit! There we go.
Well, and I really, really appreciate you sitting with me and in a discussion.
It's fun.
Absolutely a pleasure for me. Have a great rest of your weekend, and thanks for joining us. And,
thank you for having me. Thank you both.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Peace.
So thank you again for joining me for this episode of DOD45, and a big thank you to Ceschi Ramos and Fake Four Records. It was genuinely a delightful conversation. I learned a lot, and I think Ceschi's a pretty awesome guy, and it was very cool of him to join us. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to this on or watching it on, and be sure to share it with your friends. Let them know about these shows. Viewership's incredibly important, and to keep this ship afloat, we gotta have viewers. Obviously, it's going to be a show that I'm going to keep doing because I enjoy doing it, but it's nice to know that you're watching it and that you are also enjoying it. Also, be sure to go check out Ceschi's music, and make sure that you figure out ways that you can support the artists that are making the music that you enjoy, because it sure would be a travesty if we lost access to music. You can always remain updated with everything to do with me and my artwork and the DOD45 podcast at my website at ArtByTai.com and all my social medias, Instagram at ArtByTai, Facebook at ArtByTai, YouTube /ArtByTai, and I need to step up my Twitter game, so go follow me on Twitter at ArtByTai. The next episode of DOD45 is with Mr. Dibbs and Slug of Atmosphere, and I think it's their first appearance together in a really long time. It was a wild discussion. I don't even know exactly what we discussed or what happened because it was like a 4.5 hour long discussion. Of course, I'm going to have to condense that down, but it should still be an interesting episode for sure. So keep an eye out for that. And the best way to keep an eye out for it is to hit the subscribe button or just follow me on my social media pages. That's it for now. Thank you again to Ceschi. Thank you to you for watching the shows and sharing it with your friends. And that's it. Cheers.
There are thoughts in my head that take place in my bed, and I don't have to lie.
Thanks for watching this episode of DOD45. I hope that you enjoyed yourself. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I don't want you to ever miss an episode. Also, stick around my YouTube page for a bit. There's a whole array of videos to enjoy, including time-lapse videos, drawing tutorials, and live streams. It's like an amusement park. Now click that subscribe button and go watch another episode of DOD45. Cheers.